Underwhelming. That is how I would describe the new potential offensive coordinators that Boston College is reportedly about to hire and the new offensive line coach that they're bringing in. They had a chance to shake things up. They look like they have not done so. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on this and why I might panic a little, but I might not on today's Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Boston College. This is your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of the Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Sports Network. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people with the skills, values, and experience to help you achieve your 2023 goals. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right. So happy Super Bowl Sunday for all of you listening. That was an awful end of that game, but I'm not here to talk about the Eagles and Chiefs. I'm here to talk about Boston College here. And specifically want to get into a report by Football Scoop over on, I think they're part of SI now, that over the weekend, BC is getting close to naming their new offensive coordinator, plurals actually, there's two of them, and an offensive line coach. And we're going to get into all of that and then talk about the basketball game and a tough weekend for BC sports all around. So if you had listened to what I said on last week's episode, what was the worst case scenario that I came up with for the offensive coordinator? I said it would be someone internal. I said BC desperately needs an offensive coordinator who can bring a new, fresh set of eyes to this offense. I mean, say what you will about McNulty, at least he wasn't on that team in 21. He was a fresh set of eyes. Now, this one, man, they got two. So according to the report, it's going to be Rob Chudzinski, who has been a special assistant to Jeff Hafley since Jeff Hafley stepped on campus, and also promoted within is going to be quarterbacks coach Steve Shimko. Now, the report doesn't get into who's doing what. We don't get an idea of, is one person doing one job and one doing another? I don't know. But I just have to say, okay, so let's go down each one. Rob Chudzinski had a pretty prolific offense with the Miami Hurricanes. That you can't take away from him. However, Rob Chudzinski hasn't coached in college ball in 20 years. Those years were, I mean, that's like a millennium in college sports. He hasn't coached in ages. And he had, he went to the pros and he had some pretty lackluster stops with Cleveland and Indianapolis. So I don't hate the Chudzinski hire because he's a guy that I think has some talent. Obviously, he has continuity. He brings some things that I think BC could use. That being said, I don't know. I always wanted a fresh set of eyes on this offense. One thing you needed throughout all of this is something to change. You need something to change. And you're bringing in a guy who was Hafley's, he's his advisor, specifically on offense because, Hafley doesn't know offense because he's a defensive guy. So that means to me, his handprints have been all over this offense for 2 years or longer, right? Since he's been here. So I look at this and I say to myself, this is not what BC needed. I don't know. I honestly, I'm not going to guess at what happened in the hiring process. See the message boards all blowing up that Hafley got shot down. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think when you're looking at what BC can do, there's 65 there are 65 Power 5 offensive coordinator jobs. People will want that. You may not get your top choice, but you will get your choice. So I don't agree that no one would go to BC. I don't think that's the case. I think personally, just my gut opinion with this hire, it all goes back to what I've said all along, which is when I made my big board, when I talked about who they'd hire, Hafley goes with the guys he knows and trusts. He does not look outside his comfort zone. He doesn't get new names in there because he always, from Tem Lokaboo to Frank Signetti to John McNulty to almost every position coach that they hired other than Richie Gannell, who's gone, has had some connection to Hafley at some point. He values that a lot. And, the timing is weird. I admit it didn't take a genius to see that, like, why did it take a month if you're going to hire a guy that's already on your staff? But remember, folks, this is Boston College here. If this is what they did, look how long it took them to announce their transfers. Transfers have been on campus for 3 weeks, and they just announced them being on campus on Friday. It gets to that point for me. Like, BC's just slow. They're very, very slow. And so I wonder maybe the reason why we didn't hear that there were candidates that were interviewing. Agents love to get those out there because it's in the best interest of their clients if they hear, if you hear that your guy is getting offers here and there and there and there. So I look at this and I say, maybe all along he just wanted to promote from within. And maybe that's why McNulty was let off so late. It was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to move him and move some guys around. So that's my thoughts on Chud. And folks in the comment section, I see the comments going crazy right now. I will get to the comments later in the show. I have a few things off my chest I got to get first. And I like to go through my stuff and then I'll get to the comments. So please bear with me. And if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube page, I love seeing all these new names on there. So the other name, Steve Shimko. All right. So if you didn't like Chudzinski because you thought his name was too ingrained with BC, you're not going to like Shimko. He's been there. He's been the tight ends coach. He's been the quarterbacks coach. Now, I don't know how I feel about him being promoted. I don't know. I do say of any of the positional coaches, look at what he's been able to do. I think he's done a nice job of bringing guys up. So he was the tight ends coach for Hunter Long, who became really good. He was the tight ends coach for Trey Berry, who I thought was good when he wasn't hurt. And then he moved over to quarterbacks. And you can't deny the steps that Emmett Moorhead took. And as much as we want to throw the coaches under the bus for everything, they did develop Emmett Moorhead into what could be a decent quarterback. In 2021, he looked like a deer in headlights, and rightfully so, because he was a kid that hadn't played high school ball. He's developed, and that's a lot of that has to do with coaches. So Shimko can take some credit for that. That being said, I'm giving you the positives of what I think of him. That being said, I really was hoping that they'd go someplace else. I really was hoping that they'd bring somebody in who could challenge Hafley a little bit, really take control of that offense. And I think this is not where BC should have been going. Now, in our second segment, well, we have another piece of information about a possible potential coaching hire that I know a lot of fans are not excited about either. And we'll get right into that in just a moment. Now, before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the place. They are one of our partners here at Locked On BC, and I love them. They, as a small business owner or hiring manager, you know what success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experience to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and free. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Locked on BC here, AJ Black. As I said before, if you have not done so already, slam, hit, crush that subscribe button here on Locked on BC's YouTube page. Really appreciate it if you have not done. So what I wanted to talk about today, and I have to apologize if I had to cut this short. I have a sick kid right now. I mean, things are coming out of all ends of this kid. And I'm trying to get a quick episode in before I have to go back into dad duty and fix some things. But we're going to get into our next part of our episode real quick. Now, that second hire that happened, reportedly, again, these have not been confirmed. I reached out to my sources at BC, and I haven't heard anything to confirm them yet. But the other part of the Football Scoop article was that Matt Applebaum, former Boston College offensive line coach from 2020 to 2021, is going to be coming back to be the offensive line coach. Now, he was just recently fired by the Miami Dolphins, and after leaving BC in 2021 to go find a new job. Obviously, he was replaced by Dave DeGuglielmo, who was just fired at the end of this earlier this week. And Applebaum is a very divisive name. I'm going to leave it at that, right? He came in, and you can look at it two ways. You had an offensive line that statistically, they let up sacks a lot in 2020. 2021, they were one of the better pass rushing offensive lines on Pro Football Focus. If you look at their grades, they weren't bad. I think they were 36 in the country. That being said, you could also argue that the offensive line underperformed from a group that had 4 guys that are battling for NFL jobs and Christian Mahogany. So that's another piece of that pie. Now, when I was looking at potential offensive line coaches, I thought it was going to be Chris Snee all along. And I'm going to say this right now. As much as I wished it was not Matt Applebaum and it was somebody else new, I think Matt Applebaum is an upgrade over Chris Snee. Chris Snee did not have any experience, and this offensive line cannot risk a guy learning on the job. Applebaum may have, not the most impressive resume with the Eagles, but he also had some experience doing, having the offensive line hold it together. And if you can't find a guy that can do better than that, that's one other thing. But I don't know. I think he is much more of a proven commodity, no matter what his upper limits are, than Chris Snee. And I know a lot of folks are really partial to Snee because of his Boston College connection, but really, grand scheme of things, Hafley cannot risk going into 2023 with an offensive line coach that's trying to figure things out as he goes along. Now, Applebaum, I heard from some Miami Dolphins, that he wasn't bad with the Dolphins, that the offensive line just got chewed up by injuries, and that he had some issues with the offensive coordinator. That's all message board fodder, though. But at the end of the day, he's a guy that Hafley knows and trusts, so that's what he goes back to. And I think when you bring a guy in like this, fans are going to get disappointed again, because I think a lot of folks were just hoping Hafley would shuffle the deck a little bit, that he would try to get some new names in here, try to get some fresh faces, because we've seen what the old faces can do. We've seen the struggles that they've had. And I think Applebaum is going to be a name that at least hopefully should solidify the offensive line so they're not bad. As I said, your gut does not reflect the way that they actually played. Pro Football Focus slams BC for everything. and their offensive line grades were really strong when he was there. So I'm just going to throw that back out there. That being said, where were we at? Where are things at with BC? I mean, I said it at the top of the show, underwhelming. This whole process was underwhelming because, I think there's a lot to be said about the concerns of folks bringing back certain coaches because of what we've seen over the last couple of years. I always go back to that there were major issues that were not, I don't think of it as play calling more than like roster management, which it goes more to Hafley than anything. But like last year, right? I have said on record over and over again that offensive line was so catastrophically bad that it just bled through everything. Like you couldn't pass, you couldn't run because your quarterback was getting hit, your running backs couldn't get out of the backfield. Their offense was getting out, off the field way too quick because of all that. And then the defense is forced to stand on their heads, and that puts pressure on them. That was the issue last year. You fixed the offensive line. I said, like, I think you'll be better. And then I said the year before, you had the quarterback issue with Djokovic going down. Dennis Grosel was not the answer. Now we go into this year. We don't know if Emmett Moorhead's going to be the answer. More so, we don't know if Emmett Moorhead goes down, who's the guy behind him. So there's questions that still happen that are on this roster. Like, we're not going into the season with like, oh, we're feeling good because we have no questions about BC and everything's going to be better. I still think there could be some sort of catastrophic issue with this roster management that could derail 2023. But that being said, I think they're much more aligned with fixing some of the issues that they've had. I've heard a lot of good things about Peter Delaportas. I know BC's been looking at quarterbacks in the transfer portal, and they almost got one, but that's the way the cookie crumbles in the transfer portal sometimes. But there's still another portal window that they can fix that. I think the offensive line should take a huge step with the return of Christian Mahogany and 2 transfers to go along with Ozzie Trapilo and Drew Kendall. I think that's a positive step too. So that being, with all those positives, it's not like you're bringing in a coach either at offensive coordinator. And I don't know what, as I said before, I don't know what this means, having 2 offensive coordinators. And I don't know what Matt Applebaum's going to do, but I think they have more to work with, and that should be a positive. Now we're going to get into our final segment here. And again, these reports aren't confirmed yet. I think it's kind of odd that, that they've been reported, but BC hasn't been responding back. So I don't know if they're just waiting for some I's to be dotted or whatever, but we haven't heard. And practice starts in less than a month. March 3rd is the start of spring practice. Now in our final segment, I'm going to talk about another bad day in the office this weekend. BC men's basketball, who got crushed by NC State on Saturday. Now, are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fats and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. And if you're like me, when you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, I've got the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. Best part, they're 100% covered in chocolate. Listen to the flavor profiles of this. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at Walgreens and at Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head over to the nearest Walmart today, head to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. They have 4 bar boxes of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And at Sam's Club, you can find 13 bar boxes with brownie batter, churros. I'm telling you, you'll thank me later. Head over to Built.com as well. Use promo code LOG15 and you'll save 15% off. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black, and we're wrapping up our show. And we're talking about BC men's basketball here. We've already talked about the coaching disaster, or I don't even want to call it disaster. The coaching decision. I think a lot of folks are really on that as a disaster. I'm not there yet, but I still think it's underwhelming. That's what the word I'm going to continue using. But what wasn't underwhelming and was a disaster was the play of the men's basketball team this weekend. They lost by 30 to NC State. Now, this was a game where nothing was going right. First of all, Jaden Zachary was hurt. He came back. He played 22 minutes, had a decent game, but it wasn't the play on offense that really got to me. It was the defense and the play of NC State, man. NC State shot 52% from 3-point range, and it felt like they never missed a shot. Every single thing they were shooting was going in. Terquavian Smith, Joyner, that big dude, DJ Burns, my goodness, that guy looks like he should be playing nose tackle for their football team. This dude goes out there and has like a pretty nice offensive move set, and everyone's hitting their shots. Some of it was defensive problems for BC. But I watched it, and it wasn't like BC was failing to close out on some of the guards shooting those threes. They were shooting contested threes. They were shooting deep contested threes, and everything was falling. At some points you get games like this where you run into a team that shoots out of their minds like they did in this game, and there's not much you can do. Quinton Post, I thought, had a tougher game against Burns. Burns was much more of a bigger body, as obviously. And I don't think Post is a guy that grinds it underneath the court. I think Devin McLaughlin was trying to play that role, and TJ Bickerstaff behind him, but they really didn't have any answers there. Offensively, I mean, they shot, I think it was 43%, so it wasn't bad, but they just couldn't keep up to the pace of the Pack. The Pack were just shooting. They look like an ACC contender. And Kevin Keats, credit to him, after a miserable season last year, has really got the Pack going. Things are not going to get easier for BC, though. They head to Pitt. It was one of the best teams and the best stories in the ACC on Tuesday. We'll have full coverage of that game after it happens, and hopefully the Eagles can get back on. I mean, the one positive, you want to take one positive away from that basketball game, it was Chaz Kelly. Well, Quinton Post, obviously, offensively, he's always looking good. I think he had 20-something points again. And Chaz Kelly, though, comes in the second half and scores 7 points right off the bench. So, again, it wasn't. I'd like to see him play more, and I'm guessing Grant went with Madsen over him because I think Terquavian Smith would have eaten Chaz Kelly alive. What he did to Madsen too, but I think he would have had even more trouble. But I thought he was a positive. Now let's get to quick comments, and then I got to head out because I think my little guy's getting sick again. There's a lot of comments here. Frank says, I've calmed down. My biggest worry is that nobody wanted the job due to the half becoming a lame duck next year. I mean, I don't know. I don't agree with that because Adazio went through offensive coordinators like candy. And he grabbed, I forget what his name is. He's at Northwestern now. He grabbed him his last year. So there are guys out there that will take these jobs. It's not like they're not going to understand that, Adazio was on the hot seat too, and he was able to find somebody. Okay. Also, what was the true story with that running back that immediately switched to Virginia Tech? He wanted to play closer to home. There's no gotcha moment here on BC staff here. He was in the transfer portal. There was a signing day that he was supposed to come to BC to sign. Virginia Tech pushed hard. He's from that area. His family wanted him to go there. That's it. So that was the story on, I think you're talking about by Sean Tootin, who ended up there. We got some comments about who Mike wrote a lot of comments about how he doesn't like the comment. So you can go to YouTube and read it. I prefer Joe Baggs, who's another commenter, over Shimko and Chud. Bruce said, we need change. If BC has another down year, Hafley should just quit himself. He's 100% going to be fired if we don't get anything better than a 6-6 record. Yep. Anyone is better than Googs, says Frank. Mike also says can't get any worse than Googs. Snee is better than Applebaum. I don't agree with that, Mike. Snee has never coached. And I'm telling you, you're a Power 5 program. You can't bring in an offensive line coach that has never coached, especially in a position that you were terrible at last year. And you guys and folks can say what they want about Applebaum. The grading of that offensive line is much better than what folks remember. And just go with that. Dennis says BC Hoops is a yo-yo. One day they're great, one day they're horrible. They will end up 500 and not play postseason. Hey, they end up 500. That's a step in the right direction. Where they end up like 13 and 17 last year. And then that's it for this. We have a couple other comments here, but I got to head out, folks. I got a sick kid and I need to run. This is AJ Black. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk more about this game, for this upcoming game against Pitt and anything else that's happening. And we'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.